Hello and welcome to the premiere episode of Characters. My name is Laura Diaz. I am so excited to be welcoming you to this project. If you're listening to this on a podcast feed, perhaps you see behind us 6 years worth of episodes of my previous show, Eco Chic. I am so proud of Eco Chic. It really was the most incredible experience. I am so proud of my work with the show. And I'm so excited to be starting a new show because I've really missed this format. Long form, like deeper conversations. And in my life, I guess, since the end of Eco Chic, so to speak, the start of the hiatus of Eco Chic, I have kind of unexpectedly carved a niche for myself, particularly on TikTok, sharing women's stories. I really enjoy it. I think it's important, and I hope that this space, Characters, can be a show for us to explore how women are portrayed in pop culture, what it means to be a living legend, what it means to be a fictionalized woman that stays in our memories. I'm really just so excited. I feel like there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of possibility. And again, I have missed this format so much, so I'm so excited to be here again. And if you're just joining me for the first time, hi, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to Characters. Welcome to the feed. Now, this first episode is particularly special because I am joined by Pamela Des Barres. She has been largely referred to as the world's most famous groupie. And she published a book in 1987 called I'm With the Band. About a year and a half ago, I read and recapped I'm With the Band chapter by chapter on TikTok, and we just all absolutely ate it up. It was such a fun experience to be having these conversations with people who were either hearing the story for the first time or had read the book when it initially came out or had read it 20 years before. Like, this was just such a fun way to connect with people and to share stories. And the book really lands as like almost gossipy. Like, it was so fun to read this and giggle. And I said at the time, if I was to go back to podcasting, I would love to speak with Pamela. And so it's very full circle for me that she is our first guest on Characters. It was such a joy to speak to her. It was like giggly and fun and exactly what I anticipated. And she just has such a good energy about her, especially in speaking about the book. And she was so open in answering my questions and just kind of like indulging me. If you're not familiar or it's been a little while since you read I'm With the Band, I'm going to read an excerpt of the description of the book. As soon as she graduated from high school, Pamela Des Barres headed for the Sunset Strip, where she knocked on rock stars' backstage doors and immersed herself in the drugs, danger, and ecstasy of the freewheeling 1960s. Over the next 10 years, she had affairs with Mick Jagger, Jimmy Page, Keith Moon, Waylon Jennings, Chris Hillman, Noel Redding, and Jim Morrison, among others. She traveled with Led Zeppelin, lived in sin with Don Johnson, turned down a date with Elvis Presley, and was close friends with Robert Plant, Graham Parsons, Ray Davies, and Frank Zappa. As a member of the GTOs, a girl group mastermind by Frank Zappa, she was in the thick of the most revolutionary renaissance in the history of modern music. So yes, I'm With the Band was a very fun read for me. It was such a fun conversation to have online, and it's such a treat to start the show, Characters, with Pamela Des Barres herself. Especially because this is a new show, I would really appreciate it if you double-checked that you're subscribed and following wherever you're listening to this show. The video version is going to be available on YouTube only, at least for now. And wherever you are, you can rate and review, and on Spotify, you can comment now. I feel like so much has changed since I've been here, but I am so excited again. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation with Miss Pamela Des Barres on Characters. Pamela Des Barres, welcome to Characters. I'm so excited to have you here.
Characters, isn't that cute?
Yeah, Characters.
Yeah, so you only have characters on the show, right? I qualify for that.
Women who have been made characters by pop culture, and you are a living legend.
I don't know about that, but somehow my story has permeated the atmosphere through the years, you know?
Yeah.
I'm lucky the book's still in print, and I've written several others, and it just keeps me going.
You have been referred to for a very long time as the world's most famous groupie.
Correct.
What was it like the first time you heard it? What is it like when you hear it today?
Well, I was on the Today Show when the book first came out, and I was introduced by Bryant Gumbel, at the time, really handsome guy, as Queen of the Groupies. So I went, really? That's interesting. It's just because I wrote a book about it and no one had yet, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there was a fictitious book written in England. Jenny, what was her name? I can't remember her last name, but she wrote a fictitious book about groupies. And Jenny Fabian, is that her name? Anyway, but there was no true story written about it. And you know, I didn't consider, I was going to call it like story of a groupie or anyway, I ran into my old friend Gene Simmons in a bookstore and told him I was writing this book. And he said, oh, you have to say confessions. You have to use the word confessions of a groupie. So that's what I did. And I think it helped. I'm with the Band is the title. And how that happened was I was on my way to see Prince, one of my heroes, at the Forum when I was with my friend Patty Darvinville. She gave me a couple of titles. We were in a limo. We really splurged. And I put my head out the top of it and said, I'm with the Band, because I wanted to meet Prince so bad. And she said, there's your title. So that's how that happened. And I was writing it already. I was almost done with it when I got the title.
Wow. I would love to talk a little bit more about how the book came to be, because it feels like such a personal account, just pulling from diary entries, and you share some just incredible details that the world could only imagine up until that point.
Yes, that's true. That's true. I didn't realize I was doing that. I was really just telling my story. And I was really proud that it became such a hit. It was an immediate bestseller, and surprisingly, though, but that I could open doors for people who were not famous to write a memoir, because that wasn't happening at that time. And that's a really important part of this to me. But I had diaries, yes, they were very important for me to keep. It was like having a friend to tell the stories to. And I knew at the time these people I was hanging out with were going to be forever, right? It wasn't just flashes in the pan, like unfortunately a lot of the musicians since then. I'm not being mean. I love but I knew they were legends. I mean, I knew they were, the Stones, the Beatles, Zeppelin, all those people. Yeah.
Did you set out to write a memoir, or were you approached?
Oh, no, I set out to do it.
Okay.
That was my idea. Yeah.
Because I have to imagine that so many people around you at that time were also asking, like, oh, I bet Pamela has some stories.
Yes, of course. But, I'd gotten married and I was living a different life. Not really. I married a musician, of course, Michael Des Barres, and our life was kind of chaotic and wonderful. But, I had, in quotes, settled down. But I've got to hand it to Michael for sure, because he loved my history. He appreciated my past, which, thank God, because a lot of men at that time probably wouldn't have. It was a different time. But he loved it. That's why I dedicated the book to him. I think I said he loves me for who I am and who I was, right? Yeah. Because he was fine with it. So, but I started writing in 85, I guess, while my son was in school. And I just felt compelled to tell the story. And I was a, writer, English major all through school. And I just felt that's something I could do. Mm-hmm. I wasn't sure. I tried to be an actress, as you know, through if you read it, and it failed. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to write this thing. But it took place because Stephen Davis, who wrote Hammer of the Gods, he interviewed me for the book. And after he got all my great stories, he said, you've got a book here. So that really helped propel it. Mm-hmm. And I always took writing workshops in between my, whenever I could, just because I always wanted to write. And one of my teachers at that time, I turned in the first few pages about meeting the Stones, and she said, okay, this is a book. So it helped.
Wow. And you have clearly always been a creative, because you even share in the book, like, little side projects that you are so dedicated to your crafts almost. I was always really amused in reading it, and I think about this often, the Western shirts that you were creating. That to me was such a fun, it wasn't just a hobby, it was something that you really dedicated your time to. So I'd love to talk a little bit about, like, your creative endeavors at this time.
You want to talk about the shirts?
Sure. Do people still ask you about the shirts?
Yes, people ask if I still do it. I did it because I was in love. I made my first 2 shirts for Chris Hillman. of the Flying Burrito Brothers, formerly the Byrds, one of my favorite bands. And I wanted to show my love. That's what the making of the shirts were about. And I thought, how can I even make the shirts really special? So I started embroidering them and beading them for him. And I remember I poked myself with a needle and I let the blood seep into the embroidery because it was almost like
Poetic.
a voodoo. No, it was a voodoo thing. It was a witchy thing I was doing. I wanted his attention.
Yeah.
But I was only 19 at the time. So maybe even 18 when I first. Because I was a virgin until I was 19, which back then was unusual, actually.
You speak about that and your friends kind of poking fun a little bit
Yes.
at your
All my friends
dedication
had
to your virginity.
completely slept with people way before me. I wanted to be in love. I wanted to be truly in love. Because I came from the 50s, of course, as you know, and watching my mom and dad, and she took care of him, and I wanted to take care of somebody with my love and adoration. And I wanted, of course, that in return. But I wanted to be really in love before I gave it all away.
Yeah.
I know I had friends who said they couldn't wait to get rid of that virginity, but that wasn't me.
Well, this is an interesting kind of crossroads for me as a reader because while a lot of the names that are exciting for people to read in the book fall in the category for you of romantic relationships, I found such excitement in reading about your female friendships throughout the book.
Good.
And you clearly had just such great friends throughout every stage of your life that you're recounting and I'm with the band. So I'd love to talk a little bit, first of all, about the GTOs, the groupies that became their own group. I'd love to hear a little bit about those early days and just what it meant to develop what Alice Cooper ended up calling a mixed media group, which I thought was such a fun way to describe you.
In his really great documentary, Super Duper Alice Cooper, he gives us the credit for the band's look. Because we spent a lot of time with musicians and we were local celebrities because we were dancing on stage with various bands, Three Dog Night, Whoever Love, and we were very exciting looking. None of us dressed the same, although we wore a lot of vintage clothes before anyone was doing it. We were wearing turn of the century, beaded, fringed, flapper things and just, unbelievable clothes that you could find in thrift stores for a couple bucks back then. So that's why the GTOs are actually seen as, mavens of fashion for back then.
Yeah.
People are still imitating us.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
How do you feel about fictionalized versions of the GTOs? I feel like you've been imagined, like in that movie Almost Famous.
I don't want to talk about Almost Famous.
Okay. You won't.
I don't like it.
I get it.
And I'll tell you why. Because the groupie character played very well, except she wanted to kill herself over a guy. Remember?
Yeah.
She did try
Actually,
to kill herself,
yeah,
right? So no groupie would do that. No, it was a misogynistic look at a groupie. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
But as far as the GTOs go, we were all for one for all. We're all for each other. Girlfriends were equally important as boyfriends, sometimes more, right? Because you never knew how long a boyfriend was going to last, especially at that age and that era and that world. But you always knew you'd have your girlfriends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the GTOs going from appearing on stage with musicians to becoming musicians in their own right.
Well, Frank Zappa. Frank Zappa was like the Prince of Laurel Canyon when he moved there from New York, and we all wanted to meet him and hang out with him. And one of the GTOs, who we were the Laurel Canyon Ballet Company at that time, we were dancing with everybody. She got the job as Frank Zappa's daughter, Moon's governess. That's what we called nanny, governess, whatever. And we got invited up to meet Frank. That's what it was. And he just was so enthralled with these wacky teenage girls, very creative girls, just unique, far out, wacky, interesting, joyous girls. So he saw that in us. He thought what we were talking about and what we were saying, because we would hang out with him and tell him stories, and he would just laugh his head off. So he had a record company at the time, just started his record company, Bizarre Straight, and he suggested we start writing songs and do an album and become a groupie group. So thrilling is not a big enough word to describe the feeling we had of, wow, okay, let's go record a record. So we wrote the songs while the Mothers were on the road, Mothers of Invention, his band, and he took us in the studio.
Did you have musical aspirations before that?
No, not really. I wanted to be an actor. I was still, all through that, I was doing plays and, trying to get parts and everything. But I did at that time. I thought, okay, good, let's do this. Let's be a band. And it became a big, several year experience that, we did a record. It came out. It's a real collector's item now. We wrote songs about our lives because that's what Frank was interested in. So the Ooh Ooh Man, my song about Nick St. Nicholas, was about my first lover. I really thought I was in love with him, and I wrote this song. And he was from Germany, and he was very unusual. We're still friends to this day. But he always said, ooh, 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 schnit, schnit, schnit. He was German. Schnit means something. And so I wrote it into the song, and I called him the Ooh Ooh Man. So this is the level of songs we're talking about. Oh, man. And Mercy wrote a song about her love for Brian Jones of the Stones and her boyfriend, her gay boyfriend, Bernardo, at the time. So we also had BTOs. There were BTOs. So we hung out with a big group of gay boys called the BTOs. So in that era, it's so uptight again now, but that era produced a lot of freedom. We felt like we were breaking all the boundaries, breaking down. It was a revolution. We really felt that we were changing things for the better. And we did for a while. Right?
Wow. Yeah. No, it's just like, it's exciting to hear you reflect on it with such passion and excitement, because in your book, in your diary entries, and you can tell, even you mentioned songs by the GTOs, they're so personal.
Yes.
And you can tell that you were really embracing the moment, like living in the moment and just
totally. And I still try to do that. I still do that. My goal is to live in the moment. That's all we have. But at the time, it was a lot of exciting moments.
Yeah.
So, yes, I'm very passionate about the past. I wrote about it, and people are still very interested in that era and that time frame. And, I'm 77 years old, so I'm proud I was able to share it, and I still do, like talking to you now. And it was a time of, there were actual love-ins. People have no idea what that is. Young people today have no idea what a love-in is.
Tell us.
It was just impromptu. I went to the very first one. It was called the Human Being in San Francisco. I used to hitchhike up there to see the San Francisco bands and just hang out with hippies and weirdos and freaks. And I happened to be in town that weekend, the first Human Being in Golden Gate Park. Mm-hmm. So it was hundreds and hundreds of hippies, love children, musicians. The musicians all played for free. Everybody was dancing half naked. That was another thing. Everybody was half naked a lot of the time. I mean, we were teenagers, right? So, and I got to hear poetry. Allen Ginsberg, Timothy Leary was there pontificating, and slowly the other cities embraced the love-in idea. Certainly LA, right? So we had a lot of love-ins in Los Angeles at different parks. And I went to all of them. And I danced with everybody. The bands played for free. You could be this close to them. I mean, it was just a time that people can't imagine anymore. No one waited for their paycheck. Jim Morrison never thought once about a paycheck. It was just a different time. And that's why people are intrigued with it, because it was a moment in time that love was surpassing hate, freedom reigned, hope, so much hope for the world, which we desperately need now. I mean,
Yeah.
I hope everybody reads my book again because we need it.
That brings me to my next question for you that we were speaking about a little bit more before we got started. I imagine that your experience in speaking about I'm with the band has changed over the years now that we are nearly 40 years after initial publication. I'd love to hear a little bit about touring the book today. What does it mean to continue talking about these stories? How has the conversation changed as you've been talking about the book, if at all? Or are there things that people will always be attached
originally, people were all about the sex, right? That's what they wanted to hear, all about what it was like to sleep with Mick Jagger or Jimmy Page or Keith Moon or any of these wonderful humans I was hanging out with. And that's changed somewhat. I mean, although sadly, it's very uptight sexually in this country again. But that was what everyone wanted to talk about. And Don Johnson, the actor, was one of my main squeezes towards the end of the book, right? And I remember my agent saying, can we take this character Don Johnson out of the book? He's not a musician. No one knows who he is. And then, of course, Miami Vice came out. And at that time, when the book came out, that was when Miami Vice was huge. And I mentioned, speaking of the word huge, I had a diary entry about Don saying he had a huge cock, right? So every TV show I did wanted to talk about Don Johnson's penis. It was unbelievable. Like, and men too. Oh, men want to know all about Don's dick. It's just incredible. Incredible, because there's so much more to the book than the sex. In fact, people talked about it in the early days because women weren't writing about sex, first of all, right?
Yeah.
So, especially true sex. It was not made up stuff. I was directly out of my diaries. So, and most people believed it. Some people said this couldn't have happened. There's no way. I remember being on a talk show, Jenny Jones, or one of those daytime shows, and some lady stood up and said, I don't believe Don Johnson would go out with you. And then they showed a lot of photos of us together. Those are made up, she said. Don Johnson wouldn't go near you. I went through unbelievable shit with that book. A lot of it negative, a lot of it.
Wow.
Yeah. Because I was talking about sex.
Yeah. Is there anything you regret including in the book?
No.
Wow, I love that.
No.
Good answer. Good answer.
No, not at all. No. And no one tried to sue me or anything because it's all true.
Did anyone have challenges with how you portrayed them in the book?
Only through hearsay.
Okay.
Because I haven't talked to Jimmy Page about it really. But I heard he tried to get it stopped published in England. And only mainly because he's just a very private person. But I only discussed my relationship with him. And we kind of made up through the years. But yeah, he was the only one. Actually, there's one little part I probably would have left out because I don't think he would have challenged it otherwise. There was long after we'd broken up, I was hanging out with Robert Plant for years, right? So I talked about him crawling across the floor in some hotel room to get to the drugs, and he couldn't, that, right?
Yeah.
So I would have left that out. It's only a few sentences, but I would have left that out.
Yeah. That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. Because it's not only a moment in time for you while you're sharing your own experiences, you are memorializing these people in some way and what they were to you.
Yeah.
Beyond how they were already being received by the world in their own
But of course,
projects.
by that time, everyone knew Jimmy Page was taking a lot of drugs.
Yeah.
It's just a miracle how good he looks and how together he is at this stage.
Yeah.
Because I witnessed, all kinds of stuff go down. But for me, he treated me great. I mean, we had a fantastic relationship at that time. But I was a kid. You remember we were all kids?
Yeah.
People also don't take that into consideration, that we were literally kids just messing around in paradise, really, that era, those cities we were in. He took me on the road. That was like big deal back then when you're a groupie.
Yeah.
Well, it probably still is. Of course, there's still groupies, there always will be. But to be taken on the road because they had girls everywhere, right? In most of the cities they traveled to. But so to be on the road with them, you're their actual girlfriend. And that made you a super groupie.
You mentioned something just now that there will always be groupies. And towards the end of the book, you make comments about noticing that there are younger and younger girls showing up in these spaces.
Well, that was then, not anymore.
Yeah. Could you tell me a little bit about the moment of realizing that you were gaining notoriety as a groupie? You were realizing, like, people are recognizing me for being a groupie.
That started, I guess, with the GTOs, really. I was, right when I started hanging out with Jagger and Mercy and I with the Stones, our album was being made or had just been completed. So it really was in the GTOs. And, now, everyone knows everything about everything. But I used to call the transmitting of groupie lore and knowledge, the groupie tom-toms, because there was obviously no internet, no cell phones, nothing like that. So people would just hear about it. So the GTOs became notorious all over the world, really. England and America, different parts of Europe. But so they would look us up. The bands would come to town and try to find us. They would get a hold of Frank Zappa's number and call. Jimmy somehow got a hold of my number and called me. And people say, how did you meet these guys? They wanted to meet us. They wanted to hang out with us. No banging on backstage doors or any of that stuff was happening for us.
It was different. It was just a different time.
Yeah, there was no bodyguards. We were all one. Let's put it that way. It was very similar to a Love-In. You'd walk into the Whiskey A Go-Go. There would be Keith Moon. You sit down on his lap. It was all the Stones sitting there in a booth. It was just different. You could run into all 5 birds at the Renaissance Fair. It was all very connected. There was no separation.
You mentioned the transmission of information across groupies across the world. Was there a sense of competition, I suppose, amongst groupies in different cities, perhaps? Because something that really resonated with me in the book was your friendship with Cynthia of the Plastercasters. And she's also kind of introduced as, another groupie from another city who then moved to Los Angeles, and you continued your friendship through a little bit. Could you tell me a little bit about, that sense of either community or competition with other groupies?
There was a little competition, not within the GTOs. We were very careful about that. But Cynthia and I both love Noel Redding from the Jimi Hendrix Experience. So Frank put us on the phone. It's on the album. Our first conversation is on the album. And we talked about Noel and Nick St. Nicholas. And there was she was upset because I tried to not see Noel Redding anymore when I knew she was crazy about him, but it didn't work. Because he was one of my guys, I still have all his letters, But we eventually made up. She and I, of course, were best friends till she passed on.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Can you talk to me a little bit about those friendships changing over time? I suppose when you are not so actively seeing each other in musical spaces.
I stayed close with Cynthia all through our lives. I even had to be her character witness when Herb Cohen, our mutual manager, tried to keep her penises, her plaster casts.
Yes.
I was her character witness in court. So she did get her penises back, but it was quite a hard-won battle. I was her character witness. So all through the years, we've stayed in touch. She moved back to Chicago pretty early. She didn't like living in LA. She was a very shy person. And she created her idea of making plaster casts of rock stars' private parts so she could get to know them and hang out with them. And she will one day, I believe, be recognized as the great artist that she was.
I think you mentioned that in the book, that she really did look at this as an art form.
Oh, totally.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
No one else was doing it.
What an original idea.
Yep.
And as we mentioned, friendships changing over time, I'm thinking the GTOs, women like Cynthia. Are there people, I guess, outside of your immediate female friendships from that time that you still maintain different kinds of friendships with?
I was friends with Robert Plant, very close friends, almost lovers a few times, but for decades and decades. And then he just disappeared out of my life. A lot of it has to do with whoever he's seeing at the time. I was very devastated by that loss because we were incredibly close. He'd come over for tea, etc. We'd go out book shopping, go to lunch, and then he just disappeared.
Yeah.
So that's sad. So sometimes they disappear. A lot of them passed on. I was in touch with Noel Redding. He died young at 57. Keith Moon, who died at 31. I mean, they have a lot of loss, a lot of early loss. I'm very close with my ex-husband and his wife Britta, but a lot of them are gone.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Mick in forever. I would love to see him. We only ever had fun.
I would love to talk a little bit about your ex-husband, Michael, if you're comfortable.
Sure, of course.
So in your book, Take Another Little Piece of My Heart, Michael writes the prologue. And it is a glowing, just a beautiful, beautiful letter to open the book.
Yes, it is.
It is so heartfelt. And you can tell that this is someone who has such reverence for you and just such respect for you. And towards the end of I'm With the Band, when you meet Michael, you are sharing that this is someone who knew of you, who knew your persona, and you were able
to GTOs fan, yes.
You were able to be your full self around him.
Yeah, yes.
So I'd love to hear a little bit about just like what that meant for your relationship. What did it mean to be with someone who already had this respect for you from the outside before you were together?
Well, he totally accepted me. And that's all it's about. He and we were madly in love, of course. We were married a long time. And we're still incredibly close, very close. We're going out to dinner Sunday night with me and Britta and one of my other friends for his birthday. So we just stayed very close. He's like a brother.
Yeah.
We were like brother and sister now.
Yeah.
And have been ever since. So, very important person in my life. And Mercy was too. Mercy was my best friend in the GTOs. I lost her 4 years ago. But boy, what a character. Speaking of characters, I wish you could have had her on here. Have you listened to my podcast with her?
Yes, I have.
Okay, they're pretty fabulous, right? I had her on twice because I should have had her on a third time.
I really respect how your relationships have changed, like you were mentioning with Michael, with Mercy, like even though you're not in these spaces in your relationship where you may have been when you met this person, you have grown with them so much and so thoughtfully, it seems. Especially, I'm thinking with your ex-husband, again, that you can write this book and be so...
Yes, the second book. He let me just...
Yeah.
He let me tell the breakup of a rock and roll marriage, and he was very cool about it. Very cool. I mean, he's just that person. I mean, he just... Whenever he can, he'll say something great about me, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Vice versa. Yeah, I have lots and lots of friends. I teach writing workshops now, women's writing workshops all over the country, LA too, and London and Toronto. And I've made so many girlfriends. I have tons of girlfriends. I may be this certain age, but I don't act it. I like to think I don't look it.
I was just going to say the same.
And it's because I keep so many friendships of all ages in my life.
What do you think is the secret to that? Why do you think that is challenging for some people? And you've done it so well.
Well, I don't just sit home. I go see a lot of music. And like I said, I teach these writing workshops. I have them on Zoom and I have them in LA at home. I'm going to Albuquerque in 2 weeks. I'm going to New York in three weeks. I have a show there. I do shows. I just meet people.
Yeah.
I meet a lot of people, all ages, And I have a protege now, a singer I love, who is only 28 years old, named Marie Williams. That she's been opening my shows for me. So I just stay in touch with. It's so important to stay in touch with all ages of people.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened a lot, mainly through my writing workshops. Because like in Chicago, at one point I had an 18-year-old in class and a 90-year-old, and there was no separation. And I only have women's workshops because at first they tended to clam up, when I had guys in class.
Mm-hmm.
They were mixed at first. Now I've only done women's writing workshops for 25 years.
Can you talk to me a little bit about the inception of the writing workshops? When did you start hosting them? Why did you start hosting them?
25 years ago, my dear lifelong friend, her life, Moon Zappa, said, you should go to this writing workshop, because in between my books, which I have 6, I would, brush up. I'd go to some workshops and write. And so I went to this workshop in the Valley with this very pleasant woman. And halfway through, I realized I should be teaching it. So it took me probably a year to gather that courage, because I was actually had a hard time public speaking.
Really?
Yeah, I know. You wouldn't think so now, but that really helped me, because I had to just be real with all these writers willing to open up, and tell their stories to me. So yeah, it's amazingly cathartic situation. And it's the best thing I've ever done, is hold these workshops, because these women express themselves like I was able to.
Mm-hmm.
And they tell their stories. A lot of them have written books, and they're been published, and they keep coming. I have girls who've been coming for like 18 years. Wow. Yeah, all over the place.
I'm so surprised to hear that you had challenges with public speaking at first.
I did, yeah. I was
seem...
shy. I was shy. I had to act, in quotes, as if a lot of the time. I would find myself in these situations, like I was with Mick at Altamont, right? That was a tough one. That was a tough day. And I was sitting there after the whole mess in the hotel room, massaging Mick's shoulders, and had no idea what to say when he was saying, I think I'm just going to give it up. I can't go through this. I could never go through this again. And it was devastating. So I would find myself in these situations and had to pretend I belonged there. And that's a big secret. That's actually in the book and the movie, The Secret. You have to act as if, and then you are.
I just got chills. I mean, hearing about Altamont from your perspective and like your backstage experience with the aftermath, I mean, it's challenging. I mean, challenging doesn't even cut it, but it was like gut-wrenching to read from your perspective. But I have to say, on the flip side of your experiences, it seemed like, as I was reading the book, there were so many things that were serendipitous. Not just right place, right time, but like you were ready to take on that opportunity.
Yes, I was certainly ready. I was always on the lookout. One of my hero guru men, although he hated to be called a guru, Krishnamurti, his whole thing was pay attention, which means you're in the moment, right?
Yeah.
So yes, I was always ready for any great thing that was about to happen. You have to make yourself ready.
I mean, it seems like it was something that was so ingrained in you, this philosophy of just like being ready for opportunity. When you were 16, you recount in the book, I believe you were 16, that you heard your name on the radio as someone was scouting you for a movie to act.
Yes.
And that was
Candy. Yeah, the movie was Candy. It was Terry Southern. So yeah, I was prepared. I was ready. I made myself ready. I was ripe for the picking in all kinds of ways, and I just put myself there, and I haven't stopped. It's not like that was, oh, my past was so awesome. I continue to, like in the last few years, I've been doing these live one-woman shows, and if people come. I've sold the whiskey out 3 times, and I tell these stories and read out of the book, and I never know what's going to come out of my mouth. All of a sudden I'll remember some amazing thing when I'm reading a piece out of the book, And then we have a Q&A after. I show photos through the years and play little snippets of the GTOs or Jim Morrison or whoever I was hanging out with. I hope you can come.
I would love to. I was just going to say that. I'm really excited to just hopefully get a ticket soon. I would love to also talk to you a little bit about these live shows, because we talked earlier about folks that are still reading the book and still excited. And you also spoke about the challenges that you had in the reception of the book initially by the public, that what people were looking to hear from, the negative reactions. What is something that at these live shows people are still really excited to hear today, that people want to ask you about? Is there a question that comes up all the time in the Q&A?
They always want to know what my parents thought, you know?
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
What was your mom? What did your mom say? What did your dad say? It was an unprecedented time. They had no clue what was really going on.
Yeah.
They couldn't, right? Because none of it had happened before. My mom was worried about drugs. She wasn't so worried about me having sex, really. When I told her I finally did the deed, she was cool. But the drugs freaked her out. When the book came out, she was more upset to hear about my drug taking than anything else.
Yeah.
So, and my father worked nights, so he was protected from my history. She did not let on what was going on, or she couldn't even have imagined really what was going on. But I was so close with her.
Yeah.
My mother lost 2 kids before me, 2 after me, you know, birth. And so I was this incredibly beloved person in their lives. And they were, especially my mom, was not willing to lose me. So she was there with me through a lot, whatever I would share with her. And she gave me this incredible foundation. I couldn't have become me now or me then without her unbelievable support. I was just so lucky that way. She loved me unconditionally, and my dad did too. He was a wild man. My dad was a wild thing. He was he was a gold miner. He did what he wanted. I got my adventurous spirit from him.
Wow. You can tell in the book the just beautiful relationship that you have with your parents. And I have to say, even reading the book, reading about your really young life, like 14, 15 years old, and like how willing you are to share things with your mother, I thought was so beautiful, in the way that you had this very open relationship clearly.
Well, that's because she wanted it that way. She made sure that we were close. I mean, you know, when I was real young, she let me put my Elvis calendar when he was going to get out of the service in the living room and mark off the days. Yes, it started with Elvis. And then you also have an early chapter about your Beatlemania and your friends that you nickname each of them after a Beatle, which I was so amused by. I was like, wow, she knew who she was from the start. Yes. Pamela knew who she was from a very young age. Yes, I did. I was a Beatlemaniac. Proud of it.
The last thing I'll ask about your relationship with your mother and the youth that you had and the fun that you continue to have and the youth you have today. How did that influence you as a mother?
I just wanted my son to be exactly who he is too.
I love that.
And yeah, he's a lot different from me. He's reclusive, you know. Yeah. But I did my best.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is there anything that you want people to know about your story and your experience today?
I just want people to live their lives as big as possible. You know, be true to yourself, love everybody. You know, it's an imperative time to be all you can be in this world. You know, it's a very difficult time.
Yeah.
So I am hoping in my books and my shows and my classes and everything give people a boost of love and joy in this particular time we're living in. Yeah. And I have faith. We've got to keep our faith.
Yeah. Me too. Thank you so much, Pamela. Thank you so much for joining me in this conversation. I have to say, I said this to you before we started. This has been such a dream to speak with you.
Oh, thank you, honey.
I enjoyed your book so much, and I enjoyed so much of the conversation that came from your book of women who have enjoyed it.
I know. I think that's so great
years
that you
and
actually
years and years.
Read it out loud.
I mean,
That's
it was
fantastic.
It was so fun. And I think the fun, the last thing the fun of it too was like, there's so much to follow up on my own. Okay, where did this person end up? Like, what did the posters look like for
well,
this
we
event?
didn't even
What
get
did
to
the
Graham Parsons, who's my absolute
let's
hero.
talk about Graham Parsons.
But yeah, Graham Parsons was a huge, huge hero of mine. He invented, quotes, country rock, Americana, whatever you want to call it, along with Chris Hillman. And he exposed his soul. And my favorite show I've ever seen was at the Whiskey A Go-Go when he wept through a George Jones song. He was just sobbing up there. And it was so emotional, so heartfelt, and so deep, and so real, and so sincere. And it made me cry. And I was looking around. Are you guys seeing this? Are you noticing this moment in time? This precious moment? Oh, my God. I was the biggest Flying Burrito Brothers fan. And I have, on my rock tours, we didn't talk about those. I do rock tours of LA and Hollywood and Laurel Canyon. I make sure everyone knows who Graham Parsons was and is. Yeah. And his daughter, Polly, is my manager now. Yeah. I've known her entire life.
Yeah, she seems like a sweetie.
Yes, she is. She is.
Gosh, well, thank you so much for sharing about Graham Parsons. I'm sorry that I didn't ask about him earlier, because I have to say that was a story that really resonated with me too after his passing, and your processing of that grief.
That was a whole thing. That's a whole spiritual thing. I'm a deeply spiritual person. I realize there's so much more than what meets the eye. And my next book is actually called Sex, God, and Rock and Roll, about my spiritual life. Yeah.
When can we
I'm still writing
that?
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I can't wait to read it when you're ready.
Yeah, it's my third memoir.
Gosh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations in advance. That's such a feat to write another book.
It is. Well, it's my sixth one. Yeah.
But a memoir especially. Like, so much reflecting. Like,
it is.
So much
so much.
self-work.
So much work. But yeah it's worth it.
Gosh. Well, Pamela, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been such a treat. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Annie.
Thank you.